listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants with hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, and Ben Lee.
Let's go Giants! SF Giants! Let's go Giants! SF Giants! Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball history, the San Francisco Giants. This is Torture Cast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. My name is Willie Dills. It is a beautiful Tuesday evening. The Giants are in the middle of a game against the Dodgers. I do not know what the score is. Chad does. So I've kindly asked Mr. Chad King, who is with me, not to tell me what's going on. By the way, did I say my name is Willie Dills? I'm not sure I did. But that's what's going on. Welcome to the show, Chad. How you doing, man?
Thanks, Willie. Pretty good. Yeah, this is 2 weeks in a row since we switched to this Tuesday format because, obviously the Giants are going to be playing mostly night games on Tuesdays while recording. So this is 2 weeks in a row where I have to just clench my teeth and bite my tongue about tonight's game. So
yeah, I mean, don't tell me about how Pablo hit for the cycle. Don't tell me about Buster Posey.
How Timmy pitched a no-hitter.
Don't tell me any of that stuff.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll wait to find that out later. But we got a lot to talk about. Now, obviously, last week we recorded on Tuesday, and probably the biggest news that's happened in San Francisco Giants recent history landed on Wednesday. So
pretty much made our Tuesday recording completely irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. Like we went right from doing a show that was fairly topical and had quite a bit to do with the current situation that the Giants were in, and then immediately the next day discovered that the entire season perhaps had kind of been upended and kind of everything had just been, up was down, down was up. Suddenly everything was just a little different. And of course, we're talking about Melky Cabrera and his 50-game suspension for using performance-enhancing drugs. So first of all, let's jump right into it. By the way, this is episode 36, the Gaylord Perry episode.
Yes, the Gaylord Perry episode. Very
good.
Which
I have actually 2 signed Gaylord Perry cards that a fan of another podcast I do, who I hope listens to this show, actually sent to me because he is personal friends somehow with Gaylord Perry.
No kidding.
Yeah, so really, really cool. It was one of those things that you just don't expect to suddenly have 2 signed Gaylord Perry cards land in your lap, but they did, and that was awesome. So
not too bad.
Shout out to that guy. He told me to keep it on the down low, so I'm not going to say his name.
All right.
But he knows what's up. Anyway,
you're welcome, Willie.
Exactly. Yeah, it was Chad King. So let's go ahead. I want you wrote a blog post about it. It's on torturecast.com if anybody wants to read it. But that was kind of your initial reaction. If you want to just kind of reiterate, what were you feeling the moment you heard about the news that Melky Cabrera had been suspended 50 games, had admitted to using testosterone, basically came right out and said, "Yeah, I did. I made a mistake." Before we found out all the other weird stuff that surrounded this situation.
The ancillary cover-up.
Exactly. Why don't you just tell me, what was your initial reaction to the whole thing?
It reminded me, honestly, the first memory that came to mind, the first feeling I had that just kind of came out. And obviously you go through, it's not like someone dying, of course, with the 7 stages of grief and denial and whatever, acceptance. It's nothing like that. But you do go through a couple of stages because you're kind of trying to process the information. Because I think he was a guy that no one I personally knew ever suspected anything from him, even after the Baggerly blog back in July, where there were some leaks about him potentially testing positive, behind closed doors, but no one gave it any credence because he didn't really have a solid lead. It was more rumors than anything. And there's rumors floating around, everywhere about so many players, but it really reminded me of being 7 years old. And I remember this older kid that lived in my street. He was a year or 2 older than me. And it was right after Christmas. And I was outside talking about what I got for Christmas and blah, 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 and how Santa visited my house. Now, what my parents used to do, which was really cool back in the day, and I've actually kind of taken this tradition into my house with my children. In fact, my daughter's just about to turn 7 next month. So she's about the same age as I was when this happened. But what my dad used to do is take, that fake snow that you spray on windows and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he would basically spray his handprint like around his hand on our glass fireplace door. And I would wake up in the morning and see the snowy handprint on the fireplace. And obviously the half drunk milk and the eaten cookies and stuff like that. And that was the magic snow that Santa brought from the North Pole. And that was the proof that Santa was in my house.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was 7 years old, you're believing everything that's fed to you. So, of course, I'm out talking about, oh, my God, Santa Claus visited, he's blah, 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 blah. And this guy just completely decided to destroy the myth of Santa Claus for me.
Yeah.
He was a year too older. He knew all about fake snow, and he just decided to completely destroy my world. So after he explained everything to me and how it all worked, I went back home crying hysterically to my parents, remembering, going, is this true? Oh, is it fake snow? And that's when my parents kind of had to sit me down and have the talk. Yeah.
That's a painful moment.
I won't repeat what they said, of course, because some children actually might be listening
to
this episode. But for everyone else out there who infers what I'm saying, it's not quite at that level, but that's kind of the similar feeling I had. It's only because I think we all suspected Barry Bonds. We all knew it, and no one just kind of really brought it out in the open. So I'm like, well, they're still hitting home runs for us, and they're not testing for this. But with Melky, I honestly had no suspicion whatsoever. He was, and on top of that, he's not Guillermo Mota, right? Which is another funny thing, because Guillermo Mota has been nailed twice for this.
Yeah.
And when he was nailed twice, it's like, oh, all right, whatever. He's 100 games, and we just moved on. No talk about it. It was like a little blip on the news. But now that Melky comes out, of course, he's having this career year, All-Star MVP, NL MVP considerations. He's been embraced by the fans. He's beloved. It's the milkmen and the milkmaids, and it goes on and on and on. It really feels like you've been completely betrayed to and lied to this entire time. And that was kind of the initial gut reaction. It really was getting hit in the stomach. And now that everything had come out afterwards with the investigation and the fake websites and everything else, it's like, wow, this guy is dirt. He really is.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll say that I had a similar kind of feeling. It was basically that, we as a city and as a fan base, we were all extremely excited and felt like we kind of struck gold. We'd given up Jonathan Sanchez and picked up a guy who was leading the major leagues in hits. And,
we fleeced the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, and we got all this stuff going on too. Where not only is he doing that, but the fan base is fully behind him. The milkmen, the milkmaids, all that stuff. He's throwing runners out with his arm. He's beating out bunts. He's stealing bases. He's basically doing everything that you could ask for from a number 3
hitter. And it looks
hitter.
like he's having fun on the field, too.
And he's smiling like crazy, and he seems like he's having a great time. Wins the MVP of the All-Star game. So many things that had happened led you to feeling like this was just a magical season for this guy. And we were lucky to have it be right on our front door. That we were lucky to have been able to witness all of that. Then we find out, well, actually, this guy, and people say, okay, well, it's probably not that he turned all of this around based upon simple, PED use, but he lost a bunch of weight, and that was one of the things that was kind of one of the things that people said about him when he was with the Yankees, and especially was the Braves, right? Where he just had an awful season and he looked overweight. It was people were saying, well, he's not in Major League Baseball shape. He's a little bit pudgy. He's kind of on the downside of a career before he should be because he's way too young for that. And then he suddenly turned it around, and people are saying, "Oh, well, part of it is just him dropping weight and all that stuff." Now I got to believe that him dropping weight wasn't completely natural either. He was going about that. He was getting help basically because what you really get out of the PEDs, if people think that you take steroids and then you suddenly just hit the crap out of the ball instantaneously. They don't understand how it works. It actually makes it so that you can work out every day.
Yep.
You can your muscles, your body bounces back in much quicker fashion.
It's the recovery time.
Exactly.
Is a huge portion of PEDs, especially the testosterone, because it's muscle repair. It's the ability to train longer and harder. It's the ability to play day in, day out with fewer injuries. And that in itself is going to help you obviously be a better baseball player. It's not, it can help you hit the ball a little bit further. But, he's got 11 bombs this year. That's not what it's about. It's about being able to physically perform on the field more consistently. And
absolutely.
That's exactly what's happened with him.
But I remember one specific game, too, where I heard Kruko say that, you know, we as fans wouldn't believe how much work this guy puts in, and that he's lifting on the days of games and things like that. And now I'm kind of starting to understand why he was able to do that, is because he was taking substances that made his body recover faster. And so, yeah, he was out there able to do that, able to put in the extra work. And so, yeah, it's not that he just pops a magic pill and suddenly he hits 200 hits in a year. It's that he pops the magic pills and goes out and works his tail off and gets a body that he didn't get just through, you know, supplements, working out, eating right, all that thing, all the things that we're supposed to be doing as Major League Baseball players. So, you know, and like you say, it's, comparing it to the Santa Claus thing, I think is a fairly apt comparison, because of the fact that we all just believed in this guy so much, and it just felt like we'd gotten slapped in the face, and now all of a sudden, and you know, I actually had tweets from, you know, fans who are Dodger fans saying, "Oh, today was such a happy day for me," and all this stuff. And the problem is, you know, normally a Dodger fan tweets me something like that, and I just want to get on their case for it. But in this situation, I had nothing to come back on them for.
There's nothing to come back. No, not at all. I mean, how happy would we be if, like, you know, Ethier or Kemp, someone like that, was banned 50 games? We'd be laughing our tails off.
I'd be happy that it was them, but I wouldn't be happy that I just would be happy when the day happens where nobody gets caught for this at all, because they're not doing it.
No, I agree. I want to see baseball clean of this crap, because you know that there are so many guys that are getting away with this. And even Victor Conti, or Stan Conti, whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah,
he was recently interviewed, and he was talking about this and how a lot of that synthetic testosterone can be delivered via the cream, the famous cream that, you know, Bonds apparently took. And what he was saying is that the stuff has a 1 or 2 day latency period where it kind of loads your system. You can train real hard, and then you stop taking it, and it's immediately out of your system. And you only get tested 3 or 4 times a year. Now, they are random tests, but only 3 or 4 times a year. So you can kind of play the percentages as a player and actually get away with it probably most of the time, especially if you're taking a product such as that, where it's not going to be in your urine for, you know, 3 weeks, where you're like, oh, crap, I got the test today and I just took it 2 weeks ago. I'm going to be nailed.
Yeah.
So, you know, for the most part, you could have players potentially taking it for a couple of days or maybe a week, and then they'll stop taking it, and then maybe they'll get lucky. And who knows what happened with Melky? We don't know the substance he took.
Another thing that Conti also said was that he believes at least half of baseball is probably doing this. They're just the ones who are getting caught are the idiots, I think is his term.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. I think he said only the dumb people get caught or something like that. But basically what his point was is that while MLB says that they have the highest standard of testing possible and all this stuff, they do actually leave that leeway, and part of the reason they say that they do that is so that they don't – it's basically like we don't want to catch innocent people who just might have something weird going on or whatever. They want to really make sure that they're getting – every time that someone gets their name tarnished, they deserve to get their name tarnished. But apparently the number that you actually have to reach for testosterone to epitestosterone is over 3 to 1. So if you're anywhere under that 3 to 1 level, you're not even going to they're not even going to look deeper into the situation. All right, so we had some weird Skype issues, which apparently Skype hates the TortureCast these days. But we've switched over to Google Chat. Google Plus. We're doing a hangout right now, dude.
Dude, we're totally hanging out.
We're totally hanging out. So Google, if you, by the way, Google is a sponsor of the show, right?
Oh, yeah.
Google totally sponsors the show. So everybody out there, use Google if you don't already know about it. Google's pretty good if you want to search things and stuff. Yeah, they sponsor the show. So
Google, I'll give you my PayPal account.
Yeah. By the way, all this news found on Google. So let's talk about Melky some more real quick before we move on. It's everybody's kind of hashed all this out at this point, right? I mean, we've talked about this stuff for long enough now, but I don't know if everybody's fully aware of the website stuff. So, Chad, why don't you give us a quick rundown, just a brief rundown of what that actually was, because I didn't hear this news until maybe 3 days ago or something.
Yeah, so it's just been clarified a little bit in the last 24 hours, but he tested positive sometime in July. Now, the Players Association knows it, Melky knows it, his camp knows it, Major League Baseball knows it, but it's all under wraps. And that's probably how some of those leaks did come out. Like Andrew Baggerly had that blog because he heard a canary somewhere saying something, and he confronted Melky and he denied it. And even the front office had asked him about it apparently, and he denied it. But anyway, what happened is the Major League Baseball Players Association filed a grievance upon his behalf to defend him, because every time a player tests positive, there's this arbitration window where they have an arbitration hearing, much like the Ryan Braun case, in which the player gets to defend himself and present a case in which maybe he unknowingly took a substance, or in this case, in Ryan Braun's case, of course, there was a problem with the chain of custody of the sample.
Yeah.
Well, in Melky's case, his camp, and it's still unclear if his agents were a part of this, which I totally believe they were, because why wouldn't they be?
Who else does this? Who else perpetrates this?
Yeah, who else would
It's got to
do this,
be the
right?
agents, yeah.
The agents have a financial stake in the game here. Anyway, they went with the angle of he unknowingly took a substance that contained the synthetic testosterone. So they decided to backtrack, and what they did is try to do a huge cover-up. They bought 3 websites that were already in existence, because you can't create a new website.
Because they'll be able to tell that it didn't exist prior to this date.
Exactly. So they bought 3 websites, each one for reportedly $10,000. They were all in Spanish. And what they did is they just slapped on a couple of banner ads for this product that they would claim that Melky saw and said, oh, well, look at this. I'm going to click on this and order this on the internet. And it was linked into the to the Dominican Republic. So anyway, Major League Baseball said, okay, fine, let's go check this out. So they checked out the website. They called the number, and they got a hold of a guy down in the Dominican Republic. They actually flew a couple of investigators.
Went down there.
Yeah, down there. And actually went to this guy's house and bought the stuff. They sent the samples back to Salt Lake City for testing. And in fact, it did contain that synthetic testosterone that Melky had in his system. And they're like, well, wait a minute, there's just something is fishy here. So they started to do a little digital investigation, forensics, if you will. So they started looking at the owners of the website and, that kind of thing. And the number of hits the website was getting and looking for any patterns is very obvious with the transfer of ownership and with the number of hits that the site had changed, the pattern of hits that it was obtaining before and after the positive test.
So it was obvious something had happened with this website.
Yeah. And it was completely coincident with the test date. So they were able to, build a case, and they confronted them and they said, look, this doesn't jive. And that's when it came out, and they said, okay, yeah, we kind of covered this up. And that's when Melky decided to
come ahead and come clean.
And come clean.
So basically, they know about the test. Finding out about the test, they immediately go into just cover-up mode, right? So the camp immediately goes into cover-up mode. So this is happening long before any of us know that he has tested positive.
Yeah.
This is all happening while Melky knows he's tested positive. His camp knows he's tested positive. Major League Baseball knows he's tested positive. Nobody else knows. So this whole, last month or so, he's known what's been going on, and he's been playing it off like it's all good. And he's denied it to the press because the Baggerly thing came out. He actually did get asked about it and denied it, I believe, several times from what I can remember. I mean, I did remember hearing about this. Yeah. And, someone had asked him about it, and he said, no, there's no truth to that at all. He's still doing finger guns and smiling and throwing people, he's doing all that stuff during this entire time where he knows this is coming. And this, to me, just goes it just points to he's just not as good of a guy as we thought he was.
Not at all.
He's just not a good guy. Either that or he's getting horrible advice from terrible people.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, clearly. I mean, my personal opinion is that his 2 agents orchestrated this whole thing. And, of course, he was in on it saying, I think this is a good idea.
He went along with it, so exactly.
And so now the guy who created the website, his name is something Nunez. Of course, he's the fall guy. So he's come out and said, oh, no, the agents had nothing to do with it. Melky had nothing to do with it. It was all me. No, he's not putting up $30,000 of his own money. Why would he do that? There's no personal gain for him.
No.
So, it's just clearly...
The payout comes next year when Melky apparently signs this giant contract that everyone assumed he was going to get, which now...
There's that financial incentive
exactly
agents were going for.
Which now, okay, so let's quickly talk about what we think the Giants' options are concerning Melky going forward. First of all, is there any any reason the Giants consider re-signing Melky next year at all? Are they?
I think maybe
even
Sabian and those guys get really drunk one night and call up, drunk dial, Melky Cabrera's agents. I think that's the only reason.
Just the drunk
dial. That's the only way.
I want you back, Melky. I'm sorry.
It's water under the bridge. We'll give you.
It was my fault, Melky.
Yeah, it's not you, it's me.
No, that's not going to happen. First of all,
it's not going to happen. I think it's originally when the test came out positive and he copped to it before this whole website story came out. There was still a little thing in the back of my mind saying, you know what? If you look at it from a purely financial point of view, okay, throw out the morals, throw out how he, chastised the fan base in the front office and lied to people and whatever. Let's just assume that this is a purely financial decision. The Giants can buy while he's low and see what happens. Maybe they could sign him to a 2-year contract for a couple mil a year, $3 million a year, and just see what happens. Now, I'm not saying that they would even accept that because they still might want to try the free agent market. But after this whole website thing came out and the fact that he's lied to the front office and the press and the players feel chided and let down and there have been so many sentiments let out by the Giants office. I didn't know he's just tainted. He's tainted milk.
I think honestly,
there's no way he's going to ever play in a Giants uniform again, which actually begs the question, and this is a hypothetical. He's suspended for 45 games or for 50 games with 45
left in the season. Yeah.
So hypothetically, he could be reinstated if the Giants make the playoffs and they get to their 6th playoff game, whether that be the first round or the second round, whatever it is, their 6th playoff game. I was thinking to myself, hypothetically, if the Giants made the playoffs and they made it to that 6th game, would they even reinstate him at that point?
Okay. I think that in that scenario, yes, I think they do.
You think so?
I think they do. No, I honestly hope they don't. But let's say that by that time we still have no answer in left field.
Yeah. No.
Do you, as a team, just go, fine, we'll potentially not win, a playoff series, potentially not move on, have a chance to go for the World Series because, let's say, for the sake of argument, that Gregor Blanco is still hitting 150 and Justin Christian is still hitting over. Does he have a hit? I can't even remember him ever getting a hit in the bigs.
They're swinging at everything right now.
But, and they have no other option in left field. I think that they do in that scenario. I definitely don't think they bring him back for next year. But I think in that situation, yes. Now, if the Giants do end up grabbing another left fielder somewhere, or, let's say for the sake of argument that Brown comes up and somehow wows everybody, plays left field and hits even like 260 or 250, but it looks good in the outfield and plays with, some of the promise that he has. I don't think they do in that scenario. I think, though, if there's still no answer come playoff time and we're in the playoffs and we've made it 5 games in, I do think they bring him back. Now, I hope that's not the scenario we find ourselves in.
Yeah. I think that's going to put him in a really hard position. I think originally I was thinking, all right, they'll bring him back, whatever. But again, after all of the other dirt that has been uncovered, I think
he's done.
It would just be a PR nightmare for them. And if they do make the playoffs and make it that deep, they're going to make it without him. So I think at that point they can stand on the ground of we've made it this far without Melky. Not that he didn't help them the first 3 quarters of the season. Yeah. Clearly he did. But they're essentially tied with the Dodgers when he got suspended, right? Mm-hmm. So if they are somehow able to win the West or at least back into the wild card,
then they have to feel like they did it on their own backs at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because they didn't have like a 5-game lead when Melky was suspended. So I think this is just a situation where I'm pretty certain that we will never see Melky Cabrera in a Giants uniform ever again. Yeah. And it's really weird to say that.
No, it is. I mean, I couldn't have a month and a half ago.
A week ago.
I would have, yeah, exactly. I mean, I would have never thought that this is where we would be right now, but here we are. So, Giants, just briefly, we'll just touch on this. The Giants actually canceled their Melky t-shirt giveaway day. They switched it to Angel Pagan giveaway day.
Yes, they did.
Which, at the beginning of the season, so my mom is actually, she's Wiccan, but, pagan, Wiccan, it's pretty close. I was trying to find her a Pagan jersey for the longest time. And I couldn't find one. And I have a feeling that we'll start to see more pecan jerseys now. And especially now he's playing so well and back in the leadoff role. Now he's not overshadowed so much by what Melky Cabrera had done since coming over. So let's quickly talk about some of the other stuff that's going on outside of Melky that we can be happy about, sad about. First of all, Giants 3-2 without him, so that's good. So obviously we figured we weathered the storm, at least for now. We didn't go into we didn't lose 5 in a row,
See, everybody listening to this tomorrow or the next day, I know that record can be updated right now, but I can't tell Willie.
No, you can't tell me. Mad Bum pitching fantastically against the Dodgers last night. When you outduel the last year's Cy Young Award winner, which we all saw this from the other side when Timmy had won Cy Youngs. Yeah. And some guy would come up and take Timmy deep and actually pull out a win over Timmy. You know how good that feels. And Madison at 23 years old going up against another really, really promising young lefty who's already kind of fulfilled that promise. That was a game that kind of said, nah, you better pay attention to what I'm doing. Beyond 2010, he's doing, he's continued it now. So,
well, Kershaw had 4 or 5 wins against the Giants just last year. But this year, the Giants are actually 3-1 against Kershaw, and they only have 5 wins against the Dodgers. So that's pretty amazing.
3 out of our 5 against
3 out of 5 wins are against Kershaw. So
pretty crazy. And then another thing too. Now Pence is kind of starting to turn it on a little bit, and he's actually starting to pick up some hits. So if you think about it, in a way, it's not like we really. I guess the timing was right to pick up Pence if we're going to lose Cabrera like this. But then what happens is it kind of puts us back in that position again of, well, we have 2 out of 3 of the outfield positions covered. So anyway, but he's, I got to feel good about what he's been able to do. And Scutero, you got to really feel good about what this guy's been doing. Hitting .330 since coming over to the Giants, 18 RBIs and 91 at bats, and playing good at pretty much any position we put him at. He made a fantastic catch against the Dodgers last night that probably saved Bumgarner from coming. Well, definitely saved him from coming out of that inning. And then he ended up striking out the next 2 guys. So, got a little bit more out of Bumgarner, and then we only needed to go 2 pitchers to save the game in the 9th. But in a 2-run ball game at the time, these are the types of plays that you can look back on and say that maybe saved the game. So Scutero's coming up big for us. And I gotta say the offense hasn't slowed down in the absence of Melky. We've actually possibly even picked up a little bit. We scored 10 since we lost him. We scored 8 since we lost him. We've gotten some big games since we lost Melky. So I guess just from your perspective, do you feel like the Giants must get somebody else, or do you think that with this team they can stand pat and still hold off the Dodgers?
I think they can stand pat if the attitude is right. I think there's a possibility, and Kruko was talking about this, and I can see it as being a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen or it's likely. They have a couple of choices as far as the clubhouse is concerned. Obviously they're slapped in the face by this whole Melky situation, and they can either kind of hang their heads and say, oh, the season is lost, or they can say, he's 1 out of 25. Yeah, he was one of the top 2-3 guys, but he's still only 1 out of 25. He didn't single-handedly win half our games or even 3/4 of the games. We can do this without him. And we don't know this, but it's possible it could be a rallying cry. It could be something that the media is coming out and saying the Giants are not going to make the playoffs. The Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, ESPN, the newspapers, everybody's coming out and saying, well, there goes the Giants' playoffs hopes. Everybody's writing the Giants off. And from a player's point of view, it could be a motivating factor to try and not let that happen, to show them wrong. Obviously, the Giants in 2010, a lot of people were writing them off as well, not because of one significant injury, but because of the fact that it just didn't have anybody. They were a bunch of misfits. They were a bunch of wannabes, veterans, wash-ups, rookies, whatever. And they somehow made it happen. Granted, on the last day of the season and into the playoffs, but it's possible. I think it's possible they can do this. And, you talk about like wins above replacement and all that crap. You have like Melky, he was around a 4 or 5. So, it basically says throughout a season, he's going to contribute 5 wins over a AAA/rookie replacement. Okay. Well, three-quarters of the season's already over. So statistically speaking, maybe his presence would only give the Giants 1 or 2 wins the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And clearly a couple of bounces here, a couple of breaks there, a couple of good hits here or there, a couple of strikeouts here or there could easily make up that 1 or 2 game difference. So it's definitely not a nail in the coffin. It hurts. It's demoralizing, but I think the Giants could use this as a rallying cry to do this. And they do have some options. Blanco hopefully can turn it on again.
Well, Blanco showed us what he was capable of earlier. He's been
the first
in a
couple months of the
long
season.
slump, but
If he
we
does
know
that,
he's capable.
The rest of the way, the Giants would take that no problem. Justin Christensen, he's just not. He's not
going to do it. Yeah, he's what they need is they need a quadruple A for him because he doesn't. The guy's 32 years old or something. I mean, he's not. If you can't figure it out at the big league level by 32, you're not going to be the starting left fielder and a playoff contender all of a sudden. That's just not going to happen.
The Giants are looking at other players. They're obviously Terrio's taken some practice in left field the last couple of days.
And Brown has actually played a bit of left field now.
Yeah, they're starting to put him in left field down in Double A because he might be a September call-up, and even though he might not be playoff roster eligible, I guess he wouldn't be. He still might fill in for. I think September.
I'll be honest. He definitely comes up in September because suddenly it's looking like the Giants don't have a permanent solution anywhere. It's going to look like we're going to need him sooner than later. So I think he definitely comes up just to get a feel for the big leagues and to watch some of these guys a little bit closer. And I think that's what's going to happen. Whether he plays a lot or not, it really depends on our situation and if anybody becomes available and what he shows Bruce Bochy once he gets here. I mean, I'm sure Bruce Bochy knows what he's capable of, but hasn't seen it firsthand day to day.
Yeah.
So, I'm not really holding my breath on that one. Now, as far as what the other options are out there, there's not a lot going on. We'll talk about that in just a second, but I don't really feel too good about any of that. Let's talk about we're switching up this segment, I think, because normally we have this, we're kind of calling it like the big hits or whatever, but whatever. We don't really ever do it. So I want to call it the big question. So Bochy said recently that it's time for Lincecum to be Lincecum. Now, obviously, whether Lincecum turned into Lincecum tonight, and I don't. So that might paint your comments and your remarks a little bit. But
I'm the future again.
I know. But here's the actual quote. He asked him, is it time for Timmy to be Timmy? He says, yeah, I think it is. We're getting to the back end of August here. It's going to be important for Timmy and for us to get on track and pitches better. I'll emphasize pitch. That gets away from him sometimes. Basically, the gist of it is the Giants I don't think any of us really believe that the Giants stand a real chance without Tim Lincecum becoming what we know he can be. Mm-hmm. I got to say, I say definitely no. I say definitely no. If Timmy doesn't figure it out, there's no way we can continue to carry this burden. You guys 6-12 or whatever it is, 5.5 ERA. It's at this point, it's basically like we're carrying Zito, but we also still have Zito. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's an extended period of time. So to even be close to first place at this point is a small miracle. But let's talk about, do we stand a chance without old school Timmy? For that matter, let's look about 2010. Do we stand a chance without now Melky, but Brian Wilson? Right now we got bullpen by committee or closer by committee right now, and without Huff that we had in 2010, without Sanchez playing second base, without Cody Ross coming in and suddenly being the man, without Pat Burrell coming in as a pinch hitter or the four hitter and coming up big, without Juan Uribe, without Edgar Renteria hitting a home run in the World Series coming out of nowhere. Like, without all this, do we still stand a chance? Because this is a fully different team right now, and it's kind of amazing that we're at where we're at all.
The Giants should consider themselves blessed to be where they are right now. Because Timmy's had such a bad year. He's doubled his career ERA, in a sense. I mean, if the Giants had a healthy, normal Timmy right now, I think they'd be 6 games ahead of the Dodgers at least.
Yeah. Well, think about if he switches his record, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not unreasonable to think of Timmy as being 12-6 right now. You know what I mean? That's where I would expect him to be, if not better. So if he's 12-6, that's 12. That's a 12-win difference. That's a ridiculous number of games different. And yeah, we'd be demoralizing the Dodgers right now if that were the case. But that just hasn't been. So, I think everybody knows it at this point. Timmy's not coming out of the starting five. It's just not going to happen. It didn't happen throughout him going through some of the worst stuff we've seen him go through.
No, he's not coming out the rest of the way now.
No.
What's really interesting is this is a conversation for later, but if the Giants somehow do make the playoffs and Timmy is just as bad as he's been all year, the rest of the year, do the Giants keep him on the playoff roster? I mean, it's kind of a moot point at this point in the discussion, but it'll
get talked about,
But much like Zito was left off the roster in 2010.
Yeah, it'll get talked about, and it's one of those decisions. I don't know how you make that decision. I don't feel for Bruce Bochy if you get to that point, and you do have to consider that as a possibility. But it will get talked about. So let's talk about left field. So armchair manager time. Let's play armchair GM right now. So who do you think is the most viable option for left field if we do not pick anybody up?
It is pretty funny because there really isn't anything there.
No.
I mean,
it's got to be Blanco, right? He's got to be the best choice right now.
He is the default right now. Yeah. It's not that he's a good option. It's just he's the default. And
now, defensively, he's just fine.
He's just fine defensively. Yeah. But I mean, he's hitting 230, 225.
Yeah.
So he's a huge drop off from Melky Cabrera. I mean, he's 100+ points lower than him, not to mention his slugging and everything else. But what else do they have? I mean, I've heard crazy concoctions. I've heard them calling up, obviously, we know about Gary Brown, and he's going to get some time, but he's not going to be their playoff guy. So that's kind of irrelevant. They've talked about guys that they might be able to trade if they clear waivers, like Frank Coeur or Cody Ross or Scott Hairston, the giant killer himself, Rick Ankiel. People have joked about Pat Burrell coming back out of retirement. That's not going to happen. No. We all know that.
I know one person on Twitter who would love that, though.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah,
she would love that. Xavier Nady, of course, is playing for Fresno right now, but I mean,
he's been awful.
He's been awful down there. He's hitting under 200. So how could that be an option?
No,
I've heard crazy, platoon combinations. There are a couple of single day things that I could see happen, like Belt, who was platooning with Huff at one point earlier this year in left field. You potentially, I don't think it's going to happen at all, not even one day, because Belt seems to have secured that first base position now.
Exactly. And who do we put there if we take him out of there?
His bat is completely picked up. He's hitting, almost 270 now. He's definitely turned it around a little bit.
Yeah, and if Brett Pill was making a case for himself to play there, maybe you could see that as an option. But you take Belt out of there, there's no other guy besides Posey right now to play that position.
Right, and so, aside from a day or two, which, again, I don't even see that happening because Belt hasn't played left field since, April or May, but Belton left, Posey at first, Sanchez catching. But, again, that could happen one or two times. It's not a permanent solution whatsoever. So the default right now is Blanco. Who else do they have?
No, and I think that Blanco is actually not a horrible choice if you think about putting Scudero at shortstop and Terrio at second base the rest of the way.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you're just replacing one 230 hitter with another, and you put him batting eighth.
Yep.
And it's fine. I honestly like Blanco as an 8 hitter because of the fact that he's basically a leadoff hitter batting eighth, and I've always been a big fan of that. His on base percentage, is much higher than his batting average. Still, he still makes pitchers work. He just doesn't. He's been slumping so badly that even that part of his game has faltered a little bit too. But from an 8 spot, he gives you some interesting options. Now, if he has to bat first, obviously that sucks. But with Pagan kind of pulling himself back together as our leadoff hitter, with the fact that Scooter has been playing so well and you can play him at shortstop and Terrio can play second base and Pablo's back, it doesn't feel like such a bad option all of a sudden to me. So I think that's where you go. And, looking at the names around, Rick Ankiel is fun. That'd be fun, I guess. But he's a weird player. He just hits the crap out of the ball, or he does nothing.
That's exactly right. He's
great arm, though. Great arm, and obviously can play in the outfield because he's a center fielder for a very long time. But Cody Ross isn't happening. Boston says that they don't want to let him go, even though I don't know why. it seems like they should really just be considering dumping everybody. They just don't seem to want to do it. They don't seem to want to pull the trigger on that. But they're just an awful team this year, and I guess they feel like they're pulling it together somewhat in the second half. But it's not happening for them right now. So I'm surprised that that's not an option, but it really isn't. And it would be a welcome option, I think, for the Giants contingency right now, but it's just not going to be one.
No.
And so really we're just kind of stuck with Blanco unless something weird happens. But I'm sure that Sabian and Bochy are exploring all options. And, time will tell. We'll have to see. So let's do some tweet at me, bruh. You had a couple good ones in here.
Yeah, so in honor of Ben, I decided to take two. Of course, it's revolving around Melky, and there were a ton.
Yeah, it was Twitter blew up.
I mean, come on, it's just unfair almost. I mean, people were dogpiling on Melky. But anyway, I chose two out of the pile, not necessarily the top, but one account called The Fake ESPN at The Fake ESPN. Melky realizes he should have just presented YouPorn instead of the fake website as cause of boosted testosterone.
That would have made more sense.
Hey, I'm not saying I have never seen it. I have no idea what that website is. I've never heard of it whatsoever. I don't even know what it means. No, I have no idea. Another one, a fake Dodgers GM account.
Oh, I was hoping this was the real Dodgers GM.
Oh, man, if it was Ned Coletti, that would be freaking
so good.
Awesome. So at Dodgers GM, Juan Uribe's PEDs didn't work because he bought them off Melky Cabrera's fake website.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's good.
Now, I chose one from Bags because, Baggerly broke this story. And
I did see that. This was a great one.
Baggerly broke this story and then he kind of bore the brunt of it for a little while until now he's been redeemed, Everybody says, oh, well, I guess we're not going to doubt your weird rumor stories anymore. Maybe there's something to them.
Did you? I actually looked back at his original blog post.
Yeah.
In which he had talked about Melky and he had accepted full responsibility and he made a full internet apology saying that he was just trying to illuminate the story and he thought it was the truth. He realized it wasn't and he retracted his statement and he apologized to Melky and the fans and the Giants organization, the front office and all that. And just the lists of hundreds and hundreds of comments from people just completely crucifying him. And of course those posts were all made before the test.
Yeah, did you look at the new comments?
I looked at a lot of the new ones. Yeah,
and everyone's just like,
people commenting
damn.
on other people's comments, going, "Suck it," stuff like that.
So this tweet that came from Bags, who is at CSN Bags, by the way, Bochy asked Terrio how he felt after working out in left field. Quote: He said, "I'm fine. The only thing I'm having trouble with is fly balls." So yeah, he's real good at fielding those base hits that get through short and third, but not so good at catching the balls in the air. That doesn't bode well for his chances at left
Not
field.
so good.
No. By the way, the Giants only dropped 2 spaces on the power rankings, and the Dodgers only gained 1 space. So the Giants are still above them on the ESPN power rankings.
Oh, there you go.
Which I find a little interesting, but whatever. I'll take it. I'll take it right now. All right, let's hate on somebody. We got new favorite guys this week, but we are going to hate on somebody. So, Chad, let's just say it on 3. 1, 2, 3. It's Melky. Yeah. All right, Melky, we hate you, dude, but we did love you.
That is the weirdest thing. I think when I started listening to you guys, and since I started joining this, since I joined the broadcast or joined this podcast, I've never had or heard of a Giant that we hated.
No. I can't think back. I mean, even Barry Bonds, like with all the stuff, I don't hate him, and I never will. I mean, other people hate him. Some fans say that they're glad when he left, and I was glad that his time was up, honestly. Yeah. But I never once actually hated the guy. You can't really, he was a good Giant in the end. And sure, a lot of the stuff that surrounded him kind of sucked, and I guess. Maybe Guillen. I didn't really care for Guillen at all while he was here.
Jose Guillen.
Yeah, and he had some similar stuff, but he didn't gain any love while he was here. So
yeah, he didn't have any fan base anyway.
No. So, but I mean, with Melky, it feels much worse because he came here, just got this huge following, most popular Giant in a long time to come along from another team and just all of a sudden the entire city embraces him, and then to find out, nope, never mind. I mean, it's the only player right now I could think of that this would be worse if it happened to is Buster Posey. Like, imagine Buster Posey getting busted.
Exactly.
There's the only guy that I could see, even if it was, or maybe Matt Cain, but it's not going to happen with these guys. It's not going to happen.
I agree with you. I think it's Kane and Posey, and then Melky was kind of number 3 as far as being
Timmy,
beloved by the fans. Well, Timmy, I mean, okay, he's up there too. It's just that this year he's kind of had a turn south, so it wasn't on the top.
But obviously,
but still,
does anybody ever think that Timmy's using performance-enhancing drugs? No, he uses performance-decreasing drugs.
Decreasing,
and then we're okay with that.
De-enhancing drugs.
And we wear shirts telling everybody that we want him to be able to do that. So
exactly.
All right, so Chad, after all the doom and gloom of this week's episode, tell us why we win it all.
Giants are going to somehow make the playoffs. They're going to make it to Game 6. Melky is going to come back, and he's going to carry the Giants on their back to the World Series title.
Because he's just been juicing the entire time.
He's juicing the entire time.
He's like, without fear of piss tests, I've just been going crazy. He's like, I'm just loading up on the stuff.
He's back down to the Dominican Republic right now as we record, and he's just got cream all over his body.
He's not even trying to hide it from anybody. He's just like dousing. He's just dumping pills down his mouth, working out like crazy, just bench pressing giant weight. And he's got just like crumbs of steroid pills all over his mouth.
He's doing like P90X yoga and a trainer yelling at him
all at the same time, dude. Hell yeah. All right, so I'm going to say that we're going to win it all because this is actually going to galvanize the locker room. The Giants, they love feeling like underdogs. In 2010, we were the underdog. Nobody expected it to happen. This year, once we got into first place, we held on to it for a long time, and people really felt like this team deserved to be there. Whereas in 2010, it was like, what, really? These guys? And, right now, the Giants didn't have that feeling, that band of misfits feeling that they really took to in 2010. And now, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, the odds are stacked against us once again. And I think that they're all going to turn inwards, and everyone's going to step it up an extra notch above what they were already doing. And that's going to really drive this team forward. And I think we're actually going to – I don't think it's going to be quite as close as people think it's going to be. I honestly think the Giants are going to pull away at some point. I really do, because the fact that we have an easier schedule and the Dodgers haven't quite gelled, especially in the starting rotation. And they're not as good as some people may say they are.
Giants have a ton of games left against the Astros, the Cubs, and the Padres,
the
and
Rockies.
The Rockies.
Yeah, exactly.
Out of 40 games, I mean, they got like half their games against those teams, and if they can't cream those teams and win, 70% of those games, they don't deserve to win the West anyway.
No, hell no. Exactly.
So there it is.
Exactly. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of TortureCast, episode 36, the Gaylord Perry episode, which actually is the Melky Cabrera episode. But, if you want to get at us, you can do so on Twitter. We are at TortureCast. You can also follow each one of us individually. There's at ChadK21. Ben, who is not here, but we miss him, and he'll be back hopefully next week, is at Fried Duck. And I am at Willie Dills. You can also find our blog, which is at torturecast.com. And you can find us on Podomatic, torturecast.podomatic.com. I think that's what it is. Also, check us out on Facebook. Check out some of our friends, the Giants Pod guys, the two guys, a glove and a Coke bottle. They're a great podcast as well, talking about the Giants, and they actually had some really interesting stuff to say about the whole Melky situation. So
3 guys, a girl, a dog, and some Coke.
Yeah, exactly. So I encourage everybody to check them out. Also, go ahead and check out our friend Michael over at the Grubby Glove. It's another great baseball blog, and he's
I got one more thing to say.
Been right on our back. Yeah, what's up?
So my wife loves eBay, and she sells a lot of stuff. She found an authentic 1930s split finger glove.
I saw
glove
you tweet this out.
That she bought me on eBay. So I don't know for how much, probably not too expensive. But anyway, it came in the mail yesterday. It's pretty freaking amazing. I've actually never felt one of those split finger gloves, one of those old school gloves that you see in like 8 Men Out,
Yeah, you have to catch it right in the middle on the palm, really, don't you? Yeah.
There's a huge depression there where you can see where this glove has been used with the ball catching right in the middle, and it still has a faint odor of tobacco.
Oh,
no
nice.
Kidding.
You got to wear this thing out to a game, man. And like if you wear it to a game and catch a foul ball, you will be Krug and Kipe's hero.
I was going to say Kruko's hero.
They will love you. They will just be like, "Oh my God, look at this guy's
oil
glove."
it up a little bit. It's a little stiff, but
right.
boy,
we should go out for a catch. We should go for a catch in that thing. That's pretty rad, man. All right, so once again, thanks for everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week for episode 37 of the Torture Cast. For Chad King, my name is Willie Dills. We'll see you next time. A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.